Hey guys, it's Miss Rose. Here's another essay that needs some improvement, and maybe the improvement that this student needs to make is also the improvement you need to make. Excuse me. Okay, so let's just go in. Okay, so from the very beginning, this student is marking their prose as a little bit immature, a little bit hard to follow. And that immediately is going to lead to the highest you can make in evidence and commentary is a 3. It's also going to, really mark you out of the sophistication. So you want to work on your prose style, use the layering sentences strategy, really work to learn some of those patterns. You want to be developing a mature sense of writing. I highly suggest to use that structure that I created, that thesis paragraph structure, because it's going to help a little bit with some of the issues. The biggest issue here is drawn. Okay, this is a passive verb. The verb itself, drawn, is not rhetorically accurate for what Gandhi is doing. And you also have a list of rhetorically accurate action verbs. You should at all times be using those action verbs to discuss what an author does, and you're going to avoid this kind of passive voice. Passive voice can kill the energy of your writing, but the other thing it does is it can be confusing, certainly when you're using it in a way where it's not needed. Passive voice, for the most part, should be avoided at all costs. The reason this is passive is because your subject here, the significance of civil disobedience, is not doing the action. Gandhi's the one writing. Now, if you were to say something like, Gandhi asserts how significant civil disobedience is, boom, we have active verbs. So you want to be using that active verb list. I have included a page with every one of those documents that you can print if you haven't already. So you have them right beside you when you're writing your essay. Okay, numerous uses of clarity and reinforcing syntax. Clarity is not a rhetorical strategy. I have no idea what reinforcing syntax is. In that, in those handouts that I want you to have in your notebook for your open notes tests, there are words to describe syntax. Again, if you are going to discuss syntax, you've got to really talk about it with an adept kind of sense of understanding of syntax. Syntax mirrors purpose. If we have a very complex sense of syntax, then we're going to be discussing some very complex ideas that need to be fleshed out in this complex way. If you have a short, simple kind of staccato syntax, perhaps that kind of melody or something is mimicking something that the author wants to mimic. So again, just to show you, sorry. Here in this week's pathway, there's a folder called More Review Materials. And in there, I have analysis paragraph, exemplars, and instructions. These paragraphs, well, first of all, it really talks to you about how to write an analytical paragraph. It kind of just goes through the very specific things we've learned all year. We were writing about poetry, so you could skip the parts about the poems. But then also I have a very detailed, bit by bit kind of how you want to build commentary. There is a tutorial, again, on how to build body paragraphs if you need it. But then what I have here are student exemplars talking about imagery, diction, syntax, and figurative language. And there's 2 exemplars for each. So again, this is another lovely thing to read to kind of get a sense of how to talk about these things with clarity and sophistication. Still, though, this student would earn the thesis paragraph. The student, regardless of the awkwardness of the style, does have a thesis. So here, notice what the student does, urges the truth of the situation as he acknowledges the challenges he will endure by following his beliefs. This is very difficult to follow. Um, Readers, again, I have to, warn you, they spend 1 to 2 minutes reading your essay. They do not sit and try to figure it out. Once you start to mark it as an awkward read, then you're marking yourself down. Okay, so you want to use your words effectively. Don't use big words to try to make it sound smarter. I don't know. I think that's kind of what y'all think, that sometimes big words make it better. But big words can make it sound really awkward if you're using those big words incorrectly. I say simple is better if you still have a complex understanding. You can still discuss things from a more simplistic kind of vocabulary, but still be highly sophisticated in your thinking. So avoid trying to impress anyone with big words, and definitely start to really work on your conciseness. Um, and again, too, let's point out how vague this is. I think that's the other part of it. Following his beliefs, what are they? What is the current situation? You've got to get specific. The more specific, the more grounded in text, the more focused in on the layers of purpose, the stronger your analysis becomes. Okay. You would have to say how this particular quote, mad risk, gives the viceroy a greater understanding of the community Gandhi is fighting for. I don't get that. You're going to have to explain it. Why these actions are commemorable. I think you mean commendable. But again, Gandhi's not trying to say that his actions are commendable. So now you're starting to move into a misreading of the text. Gandhi draws a connection between the risk and goal of independence through nonviolence, which outlines the audience's thoughts to question the situation. Again, what are the audience's thoughts? A connection between the risk and goal of independence through nonviolence. Um, Again, okay, I'm sort of seeing that you're picking up on the fact that he's talking about nonviolence, but the reason that he calls it a mad risk is because what it ultimately will do is expose some kind of truth about the British. And that mad risk is necessary to expose the truth. None of that is being portrayed here. Uh, it's just a very awkward paragraph. It really says very little about meaning. Um, Grappling attention, to grapple with something means to kind of work with it, figure it out. We grab the attention of an audience, dive further into his ideas for the future. Again, you can say a whole lot with words and say very little at the same time. So this student has a lot of words going on, but has a lot of very vague phrases that say absolutely nothing. And so there's no point value you can earn once you start to fill your essay with layer upon layer upon layer of vagueness. If you're going to say convert bridges a relationship, you're going to have to explain how. He wants the audience to grasp the significance of his bravery. No, that's a misreading. Gandhi does not care that the viceroy recognizes the significance of his bravery. Gandhi's brave. Gandhi is bold. Gandhi is assertive. Just because he is not cooperating doesn't mean he's passive in any way. And certainly he recognizes that he's brave, but that's not his case here. So now you're starting to move further and further away from the text. What does this mean? The options of continuation in society, especially the fact that he has the intentions to promote later peace through positive communication in the movement. Um, I'm just the whole time reading this quite confused. I don't feel the text is there to ground the thinking. The reasoning is just kind of off, and in general, just a misreading, a vague reading. So there's a great deal this student could do to improve. I think you get the idea. I hope this helped.